My name is Sarah Kellogg, and I work with Appalachian Voices. I'm here because we work to try to protect communities from just this, from toxic pollution that harms them. As you all know, there was a preventable tragic spill that occurred on February 2nd. The only reason it was noticed was because a security guard noticed that the levels in the coal ash pond looked a little low. It took Duke Energy 26 hours to notify anyone that it had happened, and they didn't tell the residents of Eden, North Carolina, who were going to be directly impacted by the spill. The reason that there was a spill wasn't because a dam broke, which would have been even more catastrophic. It was because a pipe beneath the coal ash pond, a stormwater pipe, had a leak in it, a hole, and so the coal ash was able to fall through and flow out. And Duke Energy originally said that that pipe was made of cement. It was actually made of corrugated metal, which is why it was able to erode. It was decades old. Duke Energy also said that it was the only pipe of its kind under their coal ash ponds. We now know that there are 8 others, so this exact situation could happen again. It took Duke almost a full week to plug the pipe, and that was because they were concerned at the time that if they plugged it, it would cause pressure to build up and burst the other side of the dam. And the only reason that they ended up plugging the pipe was because the temporary structure they had built over the pipe to work on it collapsed into it and plugged it that way. This company has consistently
Say that one more time.
That's right. That's right.
You know, there are people streaming from around the nation, and I want to really hear that. Say that one more time.
The temporary platform that they built over the pipe to work on it collapsed into the pipe accidentally, and that's what plugged it and stopped the leak. Right. I know. And then after that leak was plugged, another pipe was found to be leaking at the same site, this time with arsenic levels 14 times higher than standards. And it wasn't Duke Energy or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources who found this pipe. It was the Waterkeeper Alliance. And it took Duke Energy again a week to plug that pipe. Originally, the company estimated that there were 82,000 tons of coal ash that went into the river. They have since reduced that number to something like 39,000 tons, but regardless of the amount, 70 miles of the Dan River is coated with ash. There are layers that are 5 feet thick in some places. And the company, as recently as last week, said that they were finding new deposits. And that's a tragedy. It was preventable. It didn't have to happen. And now, a month after the spill, we're finding more information out about just how unreliable this company is. Once again, the Waterkeeper Alliance found that Duke Energy was illegally pumping water from their coal ash pond at the Cliffside station. And then they found that the Cliffside Dam actually has a huge crack in it that's 35 feet long. That's dangerous. These dams, which are located across the state, there are 37 of them. 29 of them are rated high hazard by the EPA. That means that if they failed, it would cause human death. We are talking about human lives here. And just for comparison, the Dan River spill, which was the 3rd largest coal ash spill in the nation's history, that's the smallest coal ash pond in North Carolina, by a lot. And like I said before, it wasn't a dam that broke, it was just a pipe rupture. In Blues Creek, where Annie is from, it's the biggest coal ash pond. There are over 4 billion gallons of coal ash water. It's 342 acres versus the 39 acres at Dan River. And like I said, these plants stretch across the state. The Cliffside Pond I spoke about earlier with the crack in its dam, that's 144 acres. There are plants that sit across 9 rivers in our state and 8 lakes. In Riverbend, the Riverbend plant sits on Mountain Island Lake, which provides the drinking water for over 860,000 people. There's already been communities that have had to have their groundwater, their drinking water sources changed. That happened in Flemington outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. That was because of contamination from Duke's coal ash ponds. There's been studies coming out about the effects that coal ash has had on our fish and wildlife, people who enjoy fishing. It's costing the state thousands of dollars. It's bad for our economy. It's affecting the farmers in Eden who have relied on the Dan River to water their crops or give their cows water to drink. These ponds are unacceptable, they are outdated. They were mostly made over 40 years ago. Technology has improved a lot since then. There is no reason why this company cannot take responsibility for their toxic waste. Every single one of these sites has illegal groundwater contamination currently. We know that to be true, we're not making that up. It's unacceptable.
Thank you. And so one of the things that we're doing at this panel, because, you know, oftentimes when this happens, a corporation happens, and then there's, you know, government involvement and not wanting to really deal with the corporation, they try to minimize the impact and the dialogue and the discussion and the details, you know, of what's going on. And so that the way it comes out in the media and other places, people say, well, it's just, you know, a spill. The point of this panel, as she said, is to outline how serious it is. Let me give you a few more facts. Living near a coal ash pond is more dangerous than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Now, you know, you remember when certain companies were failing during the recession, somebody said that corporations were too big to fail. Well, communities are too important to pollute. And coal ash toxins, you know, I remember when we were down in Duplin County fighting something called, they had a plant down there, and they wanted, not about coal ash, this was about, it's amazing how these corporations come up with things and say it's all right. They wanted to have a chicken manure burning plant in Duplin County, and they claimed it was going to bring jobs, and they claimed that chicken manure burning was environmentally safe. And then some of these good environmentalists and other folk found out that when you take a match and light it to chicken manure, you get airborne arsenic. And one of the corporate guys actually said, well, a little arsenic isn't that bad. And one of the people in the audience offered to give him a spoonful of it. If it's not that bad. So we can't just say there was a coal ash spill. That's part of what we've got to do. We need to say there was pollution spill with mercury in it, and chromium, and selenium, and lead, and arsenic. That's what was spilled. Across the U.S., 70% of coal ash dams are located in areas where the household income is below the national median income. Which means 70% of these coal ash ponds are put where poor people are, where you already have less access to health care, less access to education, and less access to voting rights. And what's so terribly morally about where our governor is, and Speaker Tillis and Berger, you know, all these guys want to run for all these offices. They need to run up here and fix this situation in Dan. That's where they need to run. But what's so sad about it is, on the one hand, the extremists want to block health care and Medicaid expansion for poor folk, and then block corporations being dealt with who are making poor folks sick. That's wrong. That's a double jeopardy.